When somebody you love puts hands on you, you know, when somebody you care for, has the nerve, to like hurt you, it traumatized me, pushing me down on the bed to the floor. And then that's how it started, to then eventually choking me or dragging. So while being physically abused, the mental abuse, calling you a bitch, worthless, a whore, I feel it's the same thing.
Right. Top of the world. Today we have Erika Ruiz on the channel, and she said that the story that aligns with her story is the life story of Jenni Rivera. So for the world that don't know, how does her story parallel with yours?
Hi, Bryson. Thank you for having me here. So yeah, I guess, it's been a while since I've came in a platform to just kind of talk and chill and just, express. And I would say that, when I first saw that movie, I felt for her. I knew what she was going through, the things that she was going through with the baby daddy. And it was a lot where I realized that I wasn't the only person going through that. I think that was like the first time that I was actually really realizing, because of that movie, I was like, oh my God, there's other people that go through this. I didn't know I was stuck on a cycle until years later. Like, it wasn't something that, okay, in a few months or like in a year or two, I knew I was being in a really toxic relationship. It took many, many years. Like, I would say after 16 years, I started realizing like, wow, like this is not normal.
Right.
And so when I watched that movie, I started relating to what she was going through with the father of her kids. I mean, not everything, not the whole story, but a lot of the toxicity, the verbal abuse, the holding her back from her dreams, making her feel worthless, belittling her, making her feel like she's crazy. I was like, oh my God, what the hell? This is actually real, And there's actually a word for that. And I couldn't believe it. And I remember telling my niece, I can't believe that there's actually a word for this. Oh, this is really abuse. Yeah. So then I feel like once I started like really wanting to talk about it because I needed help, I feel like I ended up reaching out to the wrong people,
Right.
People that just didn't understand.
Right. Right. And then Jenni Rivera's biopic series, she shows that how she tried to commit suicide by taking a lot of prescription pills. And to commit suicide, that's deep. I can liken that into like just physically sinking to the lowest pit of the ocean where you can no longer see yourself. And it's like the pressure becomes unbearable. You feel things in you collapsing and you just want it to end. But do you also identify with that aspect of her life, trying to commit suicide?
I came to a point in my life after so many years of going through that, so many years of like having to put up with it, that I eventually got to that space of like not wanting to be in this world, not because I didn't want to, but I felt like I had to in a moment, like that's where I feel that I kind of now understand when people do take their lives. They take their lives sometimes because they feel worthless. They feel like they're worth nothing in this world, because there's people out there that literally make you feel that way. And it's really fucked up that human beings can actually put other people to feel that bad about themselves to the point where like they want to take their own life away. And it still kind of stresses me out when I think about things like that of my past. I stress out still, it's like I still go through it. I still feel the the emotional roller coasters at times. They still come up. There's still triggers. And yeah, definitely back in, I would say in 2021 and 2022 were the hardest years for me.
Right.
And in 2022 was actually where I was like, I can't take this no more. Like, I don't want to be here. And there was a time, like, I would tell him, can you please stop? I would beg him, like, please stop. I literally feel this way. You're making me feel like I'm shit. Like, it would make you happy for me to just take myself out. And I couldn't believe that he literally said, well, do it. He didn't say, hey, let's help you. Hey, well, I don't need to make you feel that way. I guess that's what I was thinking, like I wanted that. I expected that. Like, I really need help. And at that moment, because I had been so isolated from the whole world, he was the only thing I really had, besides my kids. My kids didn't understand what I was really going through, nor did I ever really talk to them about it because I always felt like I couldn't, they're kids. And most of that time I felt just completely alone.
And shortly after that, Jenni Rivera started to see a therapist, right? Did you also see one?
After my overdose experience, and I know we'll probably get to that later. But that's when we started talking. That's when I started seeking therapy, at first as a teenager. And that went on for years, and then after that, I seeked therapy because I got addicted to prescription medication. So that's when I seek therapy. And then it eventually became family therapy, and then it became like me therapy, like for me to help myself. So I feel like I've always been in therapy. So at some point, I feel like I just got tired of listening to myself over and over again and just feeling like nobody can really do anything for me. Like, I'm really on my own, and I felt like even people with titles can't help you all the time, you have to put the work in yourself. And I think that's when I came to realize that there's only so much somebody can do for you too, to where you have to kind of figure shit out on your own. And that's just the sad truth. That's how I feel, and I felt that for so many years growing up until now.
Right. And when she was in that dark moment, the therapist, she did something. She changed roles with her. She said, I'm gonna change roles with you. What would you ask me if I were Jenni Rivera? So I'm gonna do that with you. I'm gonna change roles with you. And at that time, what would you ask me if I was Erika Ruiz?
Focus on one thing. Get your goals together. Focus on yourself, and then everything else will fall into place. Right. Maybe that's what I would say at the time. That's just what I can think of right now. But when I think back, just being in that place, a lot of things that were said to me were kind of like, okay, now you're telling me what to do. Can you just fucking help me? Wow. It's kind of like I needed somebody to hold my hand and just like be there with me. So,
and one of your earlier interviews, you talked about how when you started writing your books, that trying to dig up all those old memories, that also brought with it old emotions, and it was too painful to where you had to take a couple pauses before continuing. So I want to piggyback that and ask, what was the most painful experience that you began to write about out of all of them? What was the most painful that was the hardest to write about?
Right now I have a book pending, and it's called My Story is Mine, My Abused Years. And I think that one is being the hardest one to actually write about because it's still in process. It's been on hold for like 2 years now. And it's like the main one. I always say the main one at the moment because I just love what I write about. It's like every single book I write about has like a very intimate reason for it. And right now I feel like that's my reason. And it's been so hard because just having to write about it, I believe in writing to heal. Yes, you'll have to go through it and face it in order for you to get through it. And I really believe that writing about it is definitely one of the main, tools to use that can actually get you through it. But it is one of the hardest things to do because you're reliving it. It's in your mind. You're picturing it. You're actually writing about it. You're putting it on a piece of paper and you start feeling these emotions all over again. And I think that this is one that's been probably the hardest. I feel like you go through so much in life sometimes and you get to this moment of like, I don't need to tell anybody anything. I don't need to explain myself to anybody on why I did things or what happened. Or like, I have nothing to lose at this point. Right. I've lost it all at one point and that's it. Right now, I'm just rebuilding myself and I'm being very, very straightforward with this book. It's very, it's going to be very deep into very, very graphic stuff. Also, things that are very embarrassing to me that I've gone through. But I feel that it's going to be meant for those women, that are going to understand it and it's going to help them. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what other people have to gossip about it because I've learned through my publishing, being an author, that you do get a lot of people that will buy your book just to talk shit. Mm. And it's crazy, but it's like, hey, if you're paying me for my book, I mean, why not?
Mm. And I feel like when you talk about it, it gives you back your power, and with Jenni Rivera, I believe that that's also where y'all stories align as far as the power of using writing as a process to heal. I feel like even though she went to therapy, you went to therapy, I feel like her music is what actually was more therapeutic for her than the actual therapist. But at the core of it, music, books, is still writing and using writing to heal and take your process to where it's meant to go to be at a better place. So how much has writing helped you overall? Has it helped you more than any human being?
Writing really has. I started discovering my writing back when I was in high school. I had a class where I had a teacher that gave us all journals and we would write about a certain topic every morning. She would write on the board, right? And we would write about it. And we ended up like communicating with her through the journal in exchange. So we would write about the topic and she would respond to it. And I would tell her of things that I was going through at home. And she would reply to it like she cared. And I was like, oh my God, somebody really gives a fuck, And it's so funny because this lady, she was a white lady. I'm not racist or anything, but it's just different. It's different cultures, So sometimes you feel like, man, this white lady's not going to understand what I'm going through. She don't care. But she cared. And we never really had that verbal communication as much. It was more like the look and good morning and here's my journal. And it's so funny because we communicated so much through that journal throughout the whole year. And I appreciated her so much. Like, I don't think that teacher will ever understand, will ever know the impact she did for me through writing in that journal, like just responding to me. And that's where I started writing and expressing myself and feeling like this is my space for me to write and express and let go. So yeah, it's definitely done. It's done the work for me. I started drinking at age 13. Right. And that was my life, It was just drinking a Mickey D's in the morning and getting drunk and just, there's a lot of things I don't really remember. And I remember faces, but it's hard for me to remember names.
Right. Right. And how many books have you written so far?
I've published a total of 15 books already.
15 books. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot of emotion. And you still have a lot more to give.
I do. And I just feel like I'm almost there to finish this one. And it's just crazy. It's lagging because it's that impactful. Like, it's just so much detail, so much intimate stuff,
Right. And what was, from you watching Jenni Rivera's story, what was a choice that she made throughout her life that you can identify with choices that you've made?
When I see her, and I'm still watching the series again, I noticed that she never gave up. And not because she was a badass, or like a cabrona chingona. A lot of women nowadays use that term to feel powerful as a woman, which I have nothing against it. For me personally, it doesn't work for me because I feel like I had to be that all my life. I had to pretend to be a badass, to earn respect out there. If people push me around, and I'm tired of that. Like, I don't want to come out like that. I want to be vulnerable. I want to be able to express myself and be myself with people,
Right.
So yeah, she was a badass. She really was. She didn't give up. She continued. And I think that that's where I can relate a lot to her, is where in reality she just had to be strong because she had to, not because she wanted to or she wanted to represent anything more than that, but she had to.
And now that you overcome your abuse, mental, emotional, physical, do you mentor other young women who's at the place that you used to be at? And how does that go?
So I had started my Healing Warriors program for women on Zoom through TikTok at first. That's where it all started. And it goes hand on hand with the book that I published called Heal Yourself, Forgive Yourself. So it's a workbook. Men started buying that book too. So eventually I converted it into a men's version as well. So then couples started buying it. But I did focus mainly on the women because I'm a woman and I would feel like I could never give another man advice, because I'm not a man and I could never relate in that way. But I did start that program, which went on for a few months. So what it is we start the book, we work through it over Zoom every Friday, and then we have a chat on WhatsApp where the girls are able to communicate together. Then I'm working on something a little bit different, but eventually that's the goal, is to continue to help women that have gone through things like me. Not just to like help them through, venting and expressing, but like eventually doing something about it. Like, yeah, we get to vent, express, and talk about it, but it's like, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to make ourselves better from that? And, help them get their lives back together, which would be, through trainings on helping them build a business on top of their healing process. And that's where the healing center comes in, which we talked about, the 2-acre land in Lancaster, which is in process of being constructed into a healing center. It does take a lot of time and it is a lot of money to invest in it. So that's why it's been taking longer than expected. But eventually I want that place to be a place of healing for not just women, at the end of the day, but men and families, because it's a whole package together at the end of the day. When a mother suffers, a woman suffers, a whole family suffers.
And what do you believe is a life lesson throughout what you've seen of her story so far that you take with you in your life?
I would say again, just not give up on your dreams. She had that dream to be a singer. And at one point she lost faith in it, but then she continued to focus on her dream regardless of what she went through, how bad she felt about herself at one point. She ended up eventually doing it. And and she, became a singer. Right. And I think that's amazing.
Right. And what led you into like drug abuse? Because that came prior to the relationship, right?
That goes back to my teenage years.
Right.
When I was drinking a lot, then I had started smoking weed, and then from that, it had turned into something else. But then that experience, it was laced, not knowing that it was, and then that's where that traumatic experience went to.
What's the worst part of, because when I was in prison and we learned about domestic violence and things of that nature, I've come to learn that it's not just physical, it's mental, emotional, financial, things of that nature. And then when you take each one and start breaking that down by itself, it goes to many other places. So for you, going through all the different aspects of domestic violence yourself, like which was the worst one?
I honestly think it's the same thing, because when somebody you love puts hands on you, when somebody you care for, has the nerve, to like hurt you, it traumatizes you, It scars you. And I don't think that a lot of people understand that, how it damages you long term and how it affects you mentally. Right. So I think that for me, it started with like physically, very slowly, with the push, with the grab on the shoulder, to pushing me down on the bed to the floor. And then that's how it started, to then eventually choking me or dragging me. So while being physically abused, the mental abuse, calling you a bitch, worthless, a whore, I feel it's the same thing. Yeah.
Okay. And usually with women, y'all will recognize something, but then let it linger because you're trying to convince yourself that it's not true. It can't be that. So how long did it, how long of a process was it? Like from the time you recognized it in hindsight, but over time you finally I got to cut this off. How long was it?
Even when I recognized it, I feel like my very first red flag was like months when I moved in with him, And these are things, again, that we don't know because we're so young, our minds are not so developed as an adult, so we don't understand, we're so new to being in a relationship and reality. And in my case, I was only 17. He was 10 years older than me. So, I mean, I feel like he knew what he was doing, And, for the first red flag was like him spying on me, waiting for me like outside for me to get home from school. And it's late, and he's just like, he was under a tree just waiting for me, like, fuck it. I've never had anybody do that to me, so I was like tripping out, but again, I ignored it. I was in my honeymoon stages. It was new to me. Of course, I wanted to get home to him. But again, they're just like little signs you ignore. And I think that I started realizing that it was abuse. Again, I would say probably like within 15 years of being in the relationship. I would get so frustrated. And then eventually, he ended up grabbing me, and he's like, is this what you want? Is this what you need to be? You want me to treat you like this? And he threw me on the bed with the baby in my hand. And then I remember feeling like, oh my God, what the hell? He doesn't care.
Yeah, what keeps you going today?
Well, today I am finally, I feel like myself again. This year is like the year that I reopened my business again, my daycare center, which is what I had lost during the the time where, all of that was going on. Yeah, a lot of things happened, and so I lost everything, Um, this year I reopened, and I'm pushing for like a big center, which I'm very excited for. And then, this is gonna help me to open up the healing center and then the camping ground for families as well. So I guess my motivation right now is to finish this book and to grow my businesses.
That's amazing. What's the title of the book again that's coming out?
My Story is Mine, the Abuse Years.
There it goes right there by Erika Ruiz. And y'all just heard it right now, fully vulnerable, laying it all on the table. Her life as it relates to the life story of the late, great Jenni Rivera, who died untimely at the age of 43. She got called to a higher place, but she was also a woman who, born and raised in Long Beach, grew up and many obstacles came her way, including abusive relationships. But eventually she found her flow. She found her power through the music, became a global icon, and she continues to impact lives today, even after she's gone. And I believe, Erika, with what you're creating with your books, with the movies that you're going to get into, with the foundations that you're involved in, the land that you're building on, that you're going to have a generational impact from here on out as well. And I appreciate you for coming on this platform to impact more lives with your story.
Thank you so much for having me here. Yeah, that's another thing we forgot to mention is making these books come to life on film.
Exactly. And the fact that I'm saying it first, she gonna give me action at producing. So
yeah, that's right.
All right, now you have a good one.
All right, thank you.